Morning after my father's retirement party, I sat in my car in the driveway of my childhood home and stared at my phone for a long time. The number on the screen was $0 and not low, not overdrawn by a few dollars because I forgot a subscription charge. Zero. Exactly zero. Like someone had gone in and swept every last cent out with a broom. I had $47,200 in that account 3 days ago. I need to back up. My name is Avery. I'm 31 years old. I work as a physical therapist at an outpatient clinic in Raleigh, and for the past 4 years, I have been quietly, carefully, almost obsessively saving money to buy a house. Not a big house. Not a house with a yard or a finished basement or anything like that. Just a place with my name on the deed. A front door I could paint whatever color I wanted. I grew up the oldest of 3 kids. My brother is 4 years younger than me. My sister is 7. My father worked in logistics his whole career, and my mother has always been the one who made the decisions. That's just how it was. She managed the money, she made the calls, she decided what was important and what wasn't. My father deferred to her on everything. He still does. Growing up, I thought that was normal. I thought all families had one person who held the wheel, and everyone else just tried not to grab for it. I was the one who got good grades and didn't ask for much. I got a partial scholarship to UNC, took out loans for the rest, and paid them off by the time I was 28. I didn't tell my parents when I got my first real raise. I had learned by then that telling them things like that had a way of coming back around. What I mean is, when I mentioned once, in passing, that I'd gotten the bonus at work, my mother called 2 weeks later asking if I could help with my brother's car insurance because things were tight. When I said I'd bought a new laptop, my father mentioned that the furnace was making a sound. Small things. Individual things. But they added up over the years into a shape I recognized, even if I didn't have a name for it yet. I opened a separate savings account at a credit union that my parents had never heard of. I didn't tell anyone about it. I put money in every month like it was a bill I owed to my future self. By last October, I had $47,200. The retirement party was my mother's idea, obviously. My father had worked for the same freight company for 31 years, and when he finally put in his notice, she started planning within the week. She booked a private room at a restaurant in Durham, invited 40 people, ordered a custom cake, hired someone to make a slideshow. She called me in August and told me about it. "We're doing it right," she said. "He deserves it." I agreed. He did deserve it. I offered to help with the setup, to handle the music, to drive my grandmother to and from the venue. I said I could contribute toward the cost if they needed help. "We're fine," she said. "We have it covered." I should have left it there. But 2 weeks before the party, she called again. Her voice was different this time, lower, more careful. "I need to talk to you about something." She told me that the venue deposit had been more than expected, that the caterer had raised prices, that the photographer she'd booked had canceled and the replacement cost more. She listed everything in a calm, measured way, the way she always did when she was building towards something. "I just need a little help getting through the month," she said. "It's temporary. We'll pay you back after your father's pension kicks in fully. It takes 60 days to process." I asked how much. She said $3,000. I said okay. That was my first mistake. What I should have done, what I know now, standing on the other side of it, is what I always did before: write a check, hand her cash, keep my account my own. But she said it would be easier if she could just transfer directly, that she had some joint expenses she needed to manage and it would simplify things. She asked if she could be added temporarily. I told myself it was $3,000. I told myself I knew my mother. I told myself 60 days wasn't a long time. I added her to the account on a Tuesday afternoon. The woman at the bank asked me to confirm it twice. I confirmed it twice. The retirement party was on a Saturday. My grandmother looked beautiful. My father gave a speech that made my brother cry, which I have never seen before and maybe will never see again. We ate good food and told stories, and my mother smiled all night the way she does when something has gone according to plan. I drove home and fell asleep feeling like everything was fine. The next morning, I woke up early, the way I always do on Sundays, and I checked my phone while the coffee was still brewing. I thought it was a display error at first. I sat up straighter, opened the app again, logged out and back in, dial 0. I went to the transaction history. There were 3 transfers, all made between Friday evening and early Saturday morning before the party while I was driving up to help with setup, while I was untangling string lights in a back room and laughing at something my cousin said. $20,000, then $15,000, then 12, 200, 200, all to an account I didn't recognize, all authorized by the second account holder, my mother. I sat in my car because I didn't know what else to do with my body. I didn't cry. I want to say that clearly, not because I think crying would have been wrong, but because I remember being surprised by it. The absence of tears. What I felt instead was something quieter and more total, like a door closing somewhere inside me that I hadn't even known was open. I called the bank first. The woman on the phone was patient and careful with her words. She explained that because my mother was a joint account holder, the transfers were authorized. That there was no fraud, technically, in the way the bank defined fraud. That she was sorry, but there was nothing they could reverse. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat there for another 20 minutes, looking at the house I grew up in, the one with the green shutters that my father painted when I was in middle school, the one where my bedroom window faces the oak tree in the backyard. And I tried to understand how $47,000 could just be gone. I went inside. My mother was at the kitchen table with her second cup of coffee, still in her robe. My father was in the living room watching television, laughing at something. My brother had slept over and was still upstairs. The house smelled like bacon and dish soap. Normal. Everything looked so completely normal. I set my phone on the table in front of her with the transaction history open. She looked at it. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then she said, "I was going to tell you today." I asked her where the money went. She was quiet again. She wrapped both hands around her mug. "She told me that your father," she said it exactly like that, "your father had borrowed money from his brother 18 months ago, that it had been more than she'd let on, that interest had been adding up, that she had been managing it, that she had a plan, but the party triggered something and his brother called and she had to make a decision fast." I asked how much he had borrowed. She said $47,000. I heard my father laugh again from the living room. I asked her if she understood what she had taken from me. She looked at me over her coffee cup and she said, "I will hear this for the rest of my life," she said. "You're young, Avery. You'll build it back. You have good income and no real obligations. We needed it more than you did right now." I picked up my phone. I walked out. I don't remember the drive back to Raleigh. I know I stopped at a gas station somewhere on I-40 because I have a receipt on my phone from that day, a bottle of water and a pack of gum. I don't remember buying them. I called my best friend, who talked me through it in that way she has, not trying to fix anything, just staying on the line while I said the things out loud that I hadn't been able to say inside my own head yet. Then I called a lawyer. I want to be specific about this because it's the part of the story that no one talks about in these situations. The part that comes after the shock, when you're still shaking a little, but your brain starts to come back online. I called a lawyer, and she told me that because my mother was a joint account holder, she had legal access to those funds. She told me that pursuing it as conversion or unjust enrichment was possible, but difficult and expensive, and that the outcome would likely depend on documentation and whether there were any written agreements about the account access being limited in purpose. There was nothing in writing. Of course there was nothing in writing. It was my mother. She also told me something I hadn't considered. She said that my uncle, my father's brother, had sent demand letters, that if my parents didn't repay, he intended to sue, that my mother had used my money to settle a debt that was, legally, entirely my father's, and that if I could show the money went to settle a third party's claim without my knowledge or consent, I might have a path. I wrote everything down. I did not speak to my mother for 6 weeks. My brother called twice in that first week, both times to tell me I was being dramatic. I let those go to voicemail, and I have not called him back. My sister texted me a long message that started with, "I understand why you're upset," and ended with, "But she's our mom and she needs us right now." I read it and set my phone face down on my coffee table and went for a walk. My father sent me a voicemail. Just one. That was 3 minutes long and mostly silence and throat clearing, and at the end he said he was sorry. He said he hadn't known she was going to use my money specifically. He said he was going to figure something out. I don't know if I believe him. I'm still deciding. What I do know is that I moved through those weeks differently than I expected to. I had been so sure all my life that if something like this ever happened, and some part of me had always known something like this was possible, which is why I had a separate account, which is why I never talked about my savings. I had been so sure that I would fall apart, that I would need someone to hold me together. But I didn't fall apart. I went to work, I treated my patients, I made my coffee in the mornings, and I went to bed at a reasonable hour, and I called my lawyer every couple of weeks for updates. I opened a new account. Solo. My name only. I started over. It is not romantic, starting over from zero at 31. I want to say that plainly because I've read the kinds of stories that end with some version of, and then I realized it was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I don't think that's honest. What it is manageable. What it is mine. I recalculated. My timeline shifted by about 3 years, maybe a little less if I'm disciplined. I stopped eating out as much. I picked up a few extra hours at the clinic on Saturday mornings. I put a number on a sticky note on my bathroom mirror, and I look at it every day when I brush my teeth. My lawyer sent a demand letter to my parents on my behalf in December. My mother called me the night she received it. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She said, in the same measured voice she has always used, that she hoped I understood what I was doing to this family. I told her I understood exactly what I was doing. She hung up. 2 weeks later, my father called back. He said they wanted to set up a repayment plan. He said they could do $400 a month. I told my lawyer, and she put it in writing. $400 a month is not $47,000. At that rate, it will take almost 10 years to repay in full. But it is documented. It is real. It is a number moving in the right direction every month like proof. There are things I know now that I wish someone had told me at 22. Never add anyone to your bank account, even for 60 days, even for $3,000, even if it's your mother and you've known her your whole life, and she has never once given you reason not to trust her. Because the truth is, she had given me reasons. I had just been calling them something else. Don't tell people your balance. Don't tell them your goals. Don't tell them your timeline. Not because you should be secretive and closed off, but because the people who love you the most are sometimes the ones least capable of seeing your money as yours. If you're going to help, help in ways you control. Write the check. Make the payment directly. Hand over what you can afford to never see again and nothing more. I learned these things the expensive way. You don't have to. It is the end of March now. The days are getting longer. I started going to the farmer's market on Sunday mornings, which sounds small but feels like something. A habit I built inside a life that belongs only to me. My grandmother called last week. She is 83 and sharp, and she has always been the person in my family who tells me the truth without dressing it up. She called to say she had heard what happened. She said my mother had always had trouble with the line between what was hers and what wasn't. She said it like she was confirming something she'd known for a long time. Then she said, "You got out clean, baby. That's not nothing." I think about that a lot. I am not the person who absorbs everything anymore. I decided that on a Sunday morning in a car in a driveway with $0 on a screen and a full cup of coffee going cold in the cup holder, I decided it quietly without telling anyone the way I do my best deciding. I have $9,400 in my new account. There is one name on it, mine. The house is still coming. It's just coming on a different road than the one I planned, and the door, when I get there, I'll paint it whatever color I want. I already know what color that is. I've known for years. I've thought a lot about the sequence of it, not just what happened, but why it was always going to happen. Why, in some way, I couldn't see clearly until it was over. I had been setting up the conditions for that morning my entire adult life. I don't mean that as self-blame. I mean it as something more honest than that. Every time I stayed quiet when I should have spoken, every time I absorbed a small ask without naming what it actually was, every time I told myself, this is just how families work instead of asking whether it had to work this way, I was making a choice. A small one maybe, but choices compound. They build into structures, and the structure I had built, over years of being the responsible one, the capable one, the one who didn't need much, was one where the people closest to me had learned, without anyone ever saying it directly, that my boundaries were suggestions. My mother didn't wake up one morning and decide to steal from me. That's the part that took me the longest to sit with. She made a series of smaller decisions, each one justified by the last, until she was standing at a bank transfer screen at 11 o'clock on a Friday night, moving $47,000 out of my account into one I'd never heard of, and somewhere in her mind it made sense. Because I was young, because I had good income, because family takes care of family, and she had decided, without asking me, that this was what that looked like. The cruelest thing about that kind of thinking is how invisible it is until it isn't. What I know now, what I carry with me into every decision I make, is that intelligence without boundaries is just a resource waiting to be used. You can be the hardest worker in the room, the most disciplined saver, the most loyal daughter, and none of it protects you if you haven't also decided what you will and won't allow. That decision is not a single conversation. It's not a hard moment and then it's done. It's a practice. It's something you have to choose over and over, in small ways, before you ever need it in a large one. My grandmother said I got out clean. I think what she meant was that I got out with myself intact, with my name still meaning something to me, with the version of Avery who saves and plans and builds, still alive and still working. My mother took the money. She didn't take that. The repayment plan is real. $400 a month, documented, signed. It is not justice in the cinematic sense. It is not the ending anyone would write if they were writing for satisfaction. But it is true, and it moves, and every month that arrives I am reminded that the decision I made to call a lawyer instead of walking back into that kitchen and accepting her explanation, that decision had weight. It mattered. It said something about who I am that I needed to say. I have $400 now. I will have more. The house is coming. And the door will be painted the color I chose years ago, before any of this happened, before I knew what it would cost to earn it twice. That color hasn't changed.